Welcome to A Course in Miracles, Lesson 44. God is the light in which I see. God is the light in which I see. Today we are continuing the idea for yesterday, adding another dimension to it. You cannot see in darkness, and you cannot make light. You can make darkness and then think you see in it, but light reflects life and is therefore an aspect of creation. Creation and darkness cannot coexist, but light and life must go together, being but different aspects of creation. In order to see, you must recognize that light is within, not without. You do not see outside yourself. I'm going to pause here and say, we talked about this in an earlier lesson, how we literally do not see outside ourselves because of the way that our senses are designed, the way the physical eyes of the body are designed. They receive impressions, they interpret it, and they project it outward. But all of that is happening within the mind. None of that is happening outside. You do not see outside yourself, nor is the equipment for seeing outside you. An essential part of this equipment is the light that makes seeing possible. It is with you always, making vision possible in every circumstance. Today we are going to attempt to reach that light. For this purpose, we will use a form of exercise which has been suggested before and which we will utilize increasingly. It is a particularly difficult form for the undisciplined mind and represents a major goal of mind training. It requires precisely what the untrained mind lacks. Yet this training must be accomplished if you are to see. Have at least 3 practice periods today, each lasting 3 to 5 minutes. A longer time is highly recommended, but only if you find the time slipping by with little or no sense of strain. The form of practice we will use today is the most natural and easy one in the world for the trained mind, just as it seems to be the most unnatural and difficult for the untrained mind. I'm going to pause here and say, a lot of the concepts as introduced to us in the workbook for the untrained mind seem very, sometimes even nonsensical or foreign or confusing. And yet, as you progress in the course, and you are progressing, you're on lesson 44. Things that once seemed strange will begin to seem not just like second nature, but like first nature. You'll start to experience it as your true self, your true nature. And at that point, you start to wonder how you ever couldn't understand. You're approaching that point where things that once seemed to be hidden will seem obvious to you. The form of practice we will use today is the most natural and easy one in the world for the trained mind, just as it seems to be the most unnatural and difficult for the untrained mind. Your mind is no longer wholly untrained. You are quite ready to learn the form of exercise we will use today. But you may find that you will encounter strong resistance. The reason is very simple. While you practice in this way, you leave behind everything that you now believe and all the thoughts that you have made up. Properly speaking, this is the release from hell. I'm going to pause here and say, have you ever heard the phrase, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know? There seems to be this tendency for the human mind to think, I'd rather stay in hell because I at least I think I understand how this hell works, than to let it go and not know what comes after. It may require a small leap of faith, but only in your perception, because the truth is, you are that. You cannot become what you already are, but you can remove a veil. You can dispel the clouds of illusion and see the truth through eyes, through a mind that has been trained to see. Yet perceived through the ego's eyes, it is a loss of identity and a descent into hell. If you can stand aside from the ego by ever so little, you will have no difficulty in recognizing that its opposition and its fears are meaningless. You might find it helpful to remind yourself from time to time that to reach light is to escape from darkness. Whatever you may believe to the contrary, God is the light in which you see. You are attempting to reach Him. Begin the practice period by repeating today's idea with your eyes open and close them slowly, repeating the idea several times more. Then try to sink into your mind, letting go every kind of interference and intrusion by quietly sinking past them. I'm going to pause here and say, don't fight them. A child once said to me, you don't fight the darkness, you just turn on the light. That was one of the most profound things I'd ever heard. And I realized in that moment I had been trying to fight the darkness, which is a form of delusion and a fearful state of mind. It would be much more simple to turn on the light. Then try to sink into your mind, letting go every kind of interference and intrusion by quietly sinking past them. We're not going to fight them. We're going to quietly sink past them. Your mind cannot be stopped in this unless you choose to stop it. It is merely taking its natural course. Try to observe your passing thoughts without involvement and slip quietly by them. While no particular approach is advocated for this form of exercise, what is needed is a sense of the importance of what you are doing. It is inestimable value to you. It's inestimable value to you. And an awareness that you are attempting something very holy, very meaningful. Salvation is your happiest accomplishment. It is also the only one that has any meaning, because it is the only one that has any real use to you at all. If resistance rises in any form, pause long enough to repeat today's idea, keeping your eyes closed unless you are aware of fear. In that case, you will probably find it more reassuring to open your eyes briefly. Try, however, to return to the exercises with eyes closed as soon as possible. If you are doing the exercises correctly, you should experience some sense of relaxation and even a feeling that you are approaching, if not actually entering into light. Try to think of light, formless and without limit, as you pass by the thoughts of this world. And do not forget that they cannot hold you to the world unless you give them the power to do so. Throughout the day, repeat the idea often, with eyes open or closed, as seems better to you at the time. But do not forget, above all, be determined not to forget today. God is the light in which I see. I like the guidance to sink past any disturbance, any thoughts, any obstruction. Sink past it. Don't stop and fight it and try and fix it or change it. Observe it, release it. For me, sometimes it feels like sinking from my head to my heart. From thinking to knowing. God is the light in which I see. Thank you for joining me today. I'll see you tomorrow for lesson 45.